Welcome to StoaTherapy, where Stoic wisdom meets modern self-mastery. If you're ready to free your mind and take control of your life, let's begin. Memento Mori, the forgotten truth. How much time do you really have left? Not in vague, comforting terms, but in real, measurable moments. How many more sunrises will you see? How many more times will you hear your loved ones laugh? How many more deep breaths will you take before the final one? The truth is, you don't know, and that is precisely why, for thousands of years, a single phrase has echoed through time: Memento Mori. What does Memento Mori mean? Memento Mori is a Latin phrase that translates to "remember that you will die." At first it might sound grim, unsettling, even depressing. But this phrase was never meant to induce fear. It was never about dwelling in darkness. Instead, it is a call to awareness, an invitation to wake up. We live as if time is infinite, as if we are immune to the one certainty that awaits us all. We fill our days with distractions, chasing after things that, in the end, hold no real meaning. Yet, Memento Mori strips away the illusion. It reminds us of what we would rather forget. Life is finite. Every second that passes is a second we will never get back. Why do we ignore death? Modern society does everything in its power to push death out of sight. We glorify youth. We hide aging. We speak of death in hushed tones, if we speak of it at all. We convince ourselves that it is distant, something that happens to other people. And so, we postpone our dreams. We hesitate to say the words we should say. We act as if there will always be more time. But there won't be, because no matter who you are, no matter what you do, no matter how much you try to delay the inevitable, your time will run out. The greatest truth in human history. From the moment humanity became aware of its own existence, it also became aware of its own mortality. And no truth has been more constant, more undeniable than this. Death comes for everyone. Empires rise and fall. Names that were once spoken with reverence fade into obscurity. Even the grandest achievements of mankind are eventually swallowed by time. But Memento Mori does not ask us to fear this reality. Instead, it asks us to embrace it, to use it as fuel, as motivation, as a guide. Because only when we truly remember that we will die, do we begin to understand how to live. Memento Mori, the historical roots. Have you ever truly thought about how civilizations before us dealt with death? Not as something to fear, not as a tragedy, but as an inescapable truth, one that shaped entire cultures, philosophies, and even art. Long before the modern world began pushing death into the shadows, the greatest minds in history embraced it. They whispered it in the ears of emperors. They carved it into paintings. They wrote it into the very fabric of philosophy. Why? Because, to them, Memento Mori wasn't about fear. It was about perspective. Ancient Rome. The whispered warning. Imagine this. You are a Roman general. You have just returned from a victorious battle. The city is celebrating you. The streets are lined with people cheering your name. The Senate has declared a grand triumph in your honor. You ride in a golden chariot, parading through Rome, basking in your glory. Everything feels invincible. You, at this moment, feel untouchable. But behind you, standing just close enough to be heard over the roar of the crowd, is a slave. And as you soak in the admiration, he leans in and whispers, "Memento Mori. Remember that you will die." It was a tradition. A reminder that no matter how powerful, how victorious, how celebrated you were in that moment, you were still just a man, a mortal. Rome understood something we have long forgotten. The higher you rise, the more you need to remember your mortality. Because power, fame, wealth, none of it can outrun death. The Middle Ages, death in every shadow, while the Romans whispered it into the ears of their leaders. The Christian world painted it onto walls, sculpted it into cathedrals, and carried it in their prayers. During the Middle Ages, life was fragile. War, famine, disease. Death was not a distant idea. It was an everyday presence. And instead of running from it, people made it a part of their spiritual practice. Monks would keep human skulls on their desks, a physical reminder of their mortality. Churches were filled with paintings and carvings depicting the dance of death, Danse Macabre, a procession where kings and peasants alike were led to their graves by skeletons, showing that death did not discriminate. Artists created vanitas paintings, where decaying fruit, extinguished candles, hourglasses, all symbolized the fleeting nature of life. It was not about morbidity. It was about perspective, because no matter your status, your wealth, your achievements, you leave this world with nothing but the life you have lived. Stoic philosophy, facing death with clarity. But if there was one group that truly understood the power of Memento Mori, it was the Stoic philosophers. They didn't just accept death, they made peace with it. They believed that remembering mortality was the key to living wisely and fearlessly. Seneca wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." To him, death wasn't the enemy. Wasted time was. Epictetus taught his students, "Look at everything you love, friends, family, even your own life, and remind yourself you will lose this one day." Not to create sadness, but to create gratitude. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, wrote in his Meditations, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think. Every moment should be lived with the awareness that it could be the last." They believed that only in accepting death do we truly learn how to live. What can we learn from the past? For centuries, humans have embraced death, not as a curse, but as a guide. Today, we run from it, we distract ourselves, we deny it, we pretend as if we have all the time in the world, but we don't. And that is why Memento Mori remains so powerful, because whether it was whispered to a Roman general, painted onto medieval walls, or written in the journals of Stoic philosophers, it speaks the same truth. You will die. So the real question is, what will you do with the time you have left? Memento Mori and Stoicism. Embracing death to truly live. Why do we fear death? It's the one thing we all share, the one certainty. Yet, it remains the greatest source of human fear, avoidance and denial. We plan our lives as if we have endless tomorrows. We push our dreams to someday. We let anger, pride and petty distractions consume us, believing we have all the time in the world to make things right. But the Stoics, perhaps more than any other philosophers, understood the absolute necessity of remembering death, not to dwell in sorrow, not to live in fear, but to wake up, to break free from illusion, to live with clarity, purpose, and urgency. This is where Memento Mori becomes not just an idea, but a philosophy, one that has shaped the greatest minds in history. Marcus Aurelius. Death is nature's design, Marcus Aurelius. one of history's most powerful men, an emperor who ruled over Rome in its most turbulent times. Yet, in his private reflections, what we now know as meditations, he constantly reminded himself of his own mortality. He wrote, "Death is not an evil. It is part of nature's process. Why fear something that is as natural as birth?" To him, death was not the opposite of life. It was a continuation of it. Everything in the universe follows a cycle. Seasons change, rivers flow, trees grow and wither. We do the same, if you accept the laws of nature. If you do not fight against what is inevitable, then death loses its power over you. The fear comes from resistance, from thinking that life owes us more time. But nature does not owe us anything. Marcus believed that the only real question is, are you living in accordance with virtue? Because that is the only thing you truly control. Everything else, your wealth, your reputation, even your body, is temporary. If you understand this, death becomes neither good nor bad. It simply is. Seneca. Death is happening right now, Seneca. Another great Stoic philosopher, but he had an even more radical view. He wrote, "Death is not something in the future. It is happening right now. With every moment that passes, a piece of our life is taken away. We think of death as something distant, something waiting for us at the end. But Seneca reminds us, we are dying every second. Every breath we take is a breath we will never take again. The past is gone, never to return. The future is uncertain. The only thing that truly exists is this moment, and how we spend it determines the quality of our lives." Most people do not live. They simply exist, lost in distractions, consumed by fear, waiting for a future that may never come. Seneca's advice: stop postponing joy. Stop assuming you will have time for what matters. Make peace with the fact that life is fleeting. Because once you truly understand that, each moment could be your last. You will no longer waste your time on things that do not serve you. Epictetus. You do not own your life. Epictetus, a former slave who became one of the most respected Stoic teachers in history, and he took this idea even further. He reminded his students, you are not in control of your death. You are only in control of how you live. We spend so much of our energy fearing what we cannot control, but Epictetus argued that this is wasted effort. Instead of worrying about death, worrying about loss, worrying about the unknown, turn your attention to what you can control. You cannot decide when you will die, but you can decide how you treat others, how you handle adversity, whether you live with integrity, and that is what truly matters. Why do we run from this truth? Despite the wisdom of these great minds, most of us still live in denial of death. We avoid talking about it. We act as if youth will last forever. We distract ourselves with endless consumption, technology, entertainment, superficial desires, all designed to make us forget that time is slipping away. But the Stoics would tell us that is a mistake. If you fear death, you are already its prisoner. If you deny death, you will live a life of regret. But if you embrace Memento Mori, you will finally be free. Because when you stop fearing death, you start valuing life. You start appreciating the little things, the warmth of the sun on your face, the laughter of a friend, the beauty of an ordinary day, and that is the only way to truly live. Final thought: if you knew you would die tomorrow, if today was your last day, would you be content? Would you be proud of how you lived? Or would you realize, too late, that you spent your time on things that never really mattered. Memento Mori is not a curse. It is a gift. It is not a threat. It is a reminder. Because in the end, the goal is not to live forever. The goal is to live so fully, so honestly, so meaningfully, that when death comes, you can meet it without fear. And that is what the Stoics understood better than anyone. Film and Memento Mori, death in modern storytelling in the modern age. The theme of Memento Mori has evolved into cinema. Great filmmakers have found ways to make audiences confront death, not as an abstract concept, but as a deeply personal reality. Memento, 2000. Forgetting death, forgetting life. Christopher Nolan's Memento is one of the most powerful modern explorations of memory and mortality. The protagonist, Leonard Shelby, suffers from short-term memory loss. He tattoos reminders onto his body so he doesn't forget crucial facts. But one truth remains unavoidable. His life is slipping away, moment by moment, and he can't even remember it. The film asks, if you lost all memory of your past, would your life still have meaning? It plays with time, showing that the past, present, and future are all illusions. Just as the Stoics believed, Memento is not just a thriller. It is a meditation on what we choose to remember and what we choose to ignore, especially when it comes to death. The Seventh Seal, 1957. Playing chess with death. One of the greatest cinematic explorations of Memento Mori is Ingmar Bergman's The Seventh Seal. The film follows a medieval knight who returns from the Crusades, only to find his country ravaged by the Black Plague. In a surreal, unforgettable scene, he sits across a chessboard from death itself, trying to delay the inevitable. The knight, like all of us, is searching for meaning. He asks, what is there beyond this suffering? Death has no answer. The film forces us to face what most of us avoid. You can fight death, you can run from it, but in the end, you will lose. But is that a reason to despair? Or is that a reason to truly live? Fight Club, 1999. Letting go of the fear of death. David Fincher's Fight Club takes Memento Mori and twists it into modern rebellion. The protagonist, trapped in a meaningless corporate life, meets Tyler Durden, a man who teaches him that only by accepting death can you truly be free. In one of the film's most powerful scenes, Tyler holds a gun to a convenience store clerk's head. He asks the terrified man what he really wants to do with his life. The man stammers that he wanted to be a veterinarian but never pursued it. Tyler lets him go, but not before telling him, tomorrow will be the most beautiful day of Raymond K. Hessel's life. His breakfast will taste better than any meal you and I have ever eaten. Why? Because after confronting death, he will finally start living. The film's message is clear. Most people are sleepwalking through life. It takes facing death to truly wake up. Memento Mori in literature. The power of words. Literature, too, has long been obsessed with mortality. William Shakespeare constantly wove death into his plays, from Hamlet holding up a skull and contemplating existence, to Macbeth reflecting on the fleeting nature of time. Life's but a walking shadow, a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. Leo Tolstoy's The Death of Ivan Ilyich is a haunting story of a man who only realizes the meaning of life as he is dying. Albert Camus' The Stranger explores a man who, facing execution, finally accepts the absurdity of life and finds freedom in that acceptance. These writers understood what the Stoics knew. The moment you accept your own death is the moment you start living with clarity. Final thought: why art reminds us of death for centuries. Artists, filmmakers, writers have whispered the same message: Memento Mori, not to scare us, not to make us sad, but to remind us to stop wasting time, to remind us that every breath is a gift, to remind us that in the end, the only thing that matters is how we choose to live while we are here, because one day we won't be. Memento Mori in the modern world. Why we run from death. Why do we pretend that death doesn't exist? Think about it. When was the last time you truly reflected on your own mortality? Most people don't. We live in an age of distraction, avoidance, denial. Unlike the medieval monks who kept skulls on their desks as daily reminders, we have done everything possible to push death out of our awareness. In the past, death was an unavoidable reality. People died at home. Families witnessed the process. Cemeteries were in the center of towns. Death was visible. It was part of life. But today, death happens behind closed doors, in hospitals, in sterile, hidden places. Funerals are quick. Mourning is rushed. We move on, burying not just the dead, but also the very thought of mortality. Why? Because the modern world hates uncertainty, and nothing is more uncertain than death. But here's the problem. Running from death doesn't make it disappear. It only makes us live in fear. Technology, distraction, and the illusion of immortality. We live in an age of infinite distraction. Social media, streaming services, endless entertainment. Everything is designed to keep us occupied, to prevent us from facing silence, from confronting our thoughts. Technology gives us the illusion of control over our image, our time, even our legacy. We upload photos. We document our lives. We create digital footprints that we think will outlast us. But will they? The truth is, in 100 years, very few people will remember what you posted on Instagram, your emails, your text messages, your entire online presence. It will all disappear. And yet, instead of using this knowledge to wake up, we continue living as if we have endless tomorrows. We act as if youth is permanent. We act as if we will always have time, but we won't. And pretending otherwise only keeps us from living fully. The psychological benefits of accepting death. So what happens when you finally accept that you will die? Ironically, you start living. Psychologists have found that people who embrace their mortality experience less anxiety because they no longer fear the inevitable, greater gratitude because they stop taking time for granted, more meaningful relationships because they prioritize what truly matters, deeper focus because they stop wasting time on things that don't serve them. The Stoics knew this thousands of years ago. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think." Accepting death is not about despair. It's about clarity. It's about making peace with what you cannot change, so that you can focus on what you can change. Minimalism and mindfulness. The new Memento Mori. It's no coincidence that in the last decade, movements like minimalism, mindfulness, and Stoicism have gained popularity. People are waking up. They are realizing that more possessions, more achievements, more distractions don't bring happiness. Because when you strip away the noise, you are left with one undeniable truth. You don't need more time. You need to use the time you have differently. Minimalism, letting go of the illusion. Minimalism is not just about getting rid of clutter. It's about letting go of the illusion that material things will make you happy, because they won't. No amount of money, possessions, or status can stop time. No amount of achievements can make life last forever. The only thing that matters is how you choose to live. Mindfulness, experiencing life instead of rushing through it. Mindfulness is not just about breathing exercises. It's about being present, about truly experiencing life instead of rushing through it. Every moment you miss is a moment you will never get back. Both philosophies, at their core, are about Memento Mori. They remind us happiness is not in the future, it's in the present. You don't need to do more, you need to live more. You don't need more time, you need to stop wasting the time you have. What can we learn from this? The modern world teaches us to fear death, to avoid it, to pretend it doesn't exist. But history, philosophy, psychology, and even modern mindfulness movements teach us the opposite. If you truly want to live, you must embrace the fact that one day you will die. Not tomorrow, not next year, but someday. And the sooner you accept that, the sooner you will start making better choices. Ask yourself, if I knew I had 1 year left, what would I do differently? If I knew this was my last conversation with a loved one, what would I say? If I had no guarantees about tomorrow, how would I live today? Because here's the truth. You have no guarantees about tomorrow. So the only rational thing to do, live today. Memento Mori. Memento Mori. Remember death. Embrace life. What if today was your last day? Take a deep breath. Now ask yourself, if today were your last day on earth, how would you live it? Would you finally say the things you've been meaning to say? Would you waste time on trivial frustrations? Would you scroll mindlessly through social media? Or would you sit in silence and truly feel the moment? Most people never ask themselves this question. They assume there will always be more time, more chances, more days. But one day, without warning, there won't be. And when that day comes, the only thing that will matter is how you lived. Memento Mori, a guide for life for centuries. Philosophers, artists, thinkers have whispered these words, Memento Mori, remember you will die, not to instill fear, not to bring despair, but to remind us that life is happening right now. The mistake most people make is believing that death is something that waits for them far in the future, that it is separate from life. But the truth is, death is not just in the future. It is happening now. Every passing second is a second you will never get back. Every sunrise you see is one less that remains. This is not meant to be sad. It is meant to wake you up. Because once you realize this, once you truly understand that your time is limited, you will start living differently. The Stoic way, live with urgency, not fear. The Stoics understood that to fear death is to waste life. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think." Seneca reminded us, we are dying every day. The past is gone. The future is uncertain. The only time that belongs to you is now. Epictetus taught, don't demand that things happen as you wish. Accept that life unfolds as it does, and you will find peace. They were not obsessed with death. They were obsessed with living well. And they knew that to live well, you must remember that you will die. How to apply Memento Mori in daily life. Memento Mori is not just a philosophy, it is a practice. Here's how you can use it as a daily guide. 1. Stop wasting time on the unimportant. Ask yourself, would this matter if I only had a year left to live? If the answer is no, let it go. The petty argument with a stranger, not worth it. The time wasted worrying about things beyond your control, pointless. The hours spent chasing validation from people who don't care, a waste. Instead, invest your time where it matters. Love, growth, gratitude, purpose. 2. Speak the words that need to be said. Most regrets are not about things we did, but about the things we didn't do. Tell the people in your life that you love them. Apologize if you need to. Forgive when you can. Don't assume there will be another chance, because one day there won't be. 3. Fully experience the present moment. Stop rushing. Put down your phone. Feel the warmth of the sun on your skin. Notice the sound of the wind through the trees. Truly taste your next meal as if it were your last, because one day it will be. And if you're always living in the future, you will have missed your entire life. 4. Accept death, and you will be free. Most people live in fear of death. But what if you didn't? What if, instead of fearing it, you embraced it as a natural part of life? What if you accepted that one day you will take your last breath, and instead of resisting, you simply said, I have lived, I have loved, I am ready. Because when you stop fearing death, you will stop fearing life, and only then will you truly be free. The final thought. Live so that you are ready to die one day. You will wake up for the last time. You will kiss someone goodbye for the last time. You will hear your favorite song for the last time. You won't know when that day's coming, but it is coming. So the question is not if you will die. The question is, will you have truly lived? Memento Mori. Don't waste another second.